AM 1460, the new WXBR. You're listening to the Metro South Morning Show, PM in the AM. Peter Zimborn and Mike Pava here with you on this Thursday morning. Today, taking place at the Comcast Center in Mansfield, is the 2013 edition of the Vans Warped Tour. And one of our favorite bands on the program who is taking part in this year's tour is none other than Real Big Fish. And joining us via the phone right now is Ryland Steen, the drummer for Real Big Fish. Ryland, good morning.
Good morning.
We have literally talked at length about how Real Big Fish, along with Social Distortion, we kind of have our group of bands that, for some reason, always come up on our show. So if you guys wonder why you were asked to do an interview with an AM talk station in the greater Boston market, well, it's because you guys come up fairly frequently on our program.
Oh, well, thank you very much.
You guys?
Well, yeah, we definitely appreciate it. We count on you guys to keep us going.
Oh, well, you know what? You guys keep putting out good music. We'll keep on talking about you. You guys playing the Vans Warped Tour, which stops in Mansfield today, just outside Boston. You guys are sort of the elder statesmen of tours like the Warped Tour at this point. A lot of bands coming up nowadays were probably children in elementary school in the 1990s when Real Big Fish first reached prominence, and probably not even reaching high school around the time you joined the band in the mid-2000s. What's the atmosphere like being sort of the elder crew of this particular tour?
Yeah, we're sort of the senior class of the tour that get to kind of like in the movie Dazed and Confused. We get to go around with paddles and we just tell the younger bands to bend over and we can smack them around if we want. That sounds weird, actually. No, we don't do that.
Sounds weird considering the fans are so young as well, mind you, right?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's fun. It's, you know, I think if anything for us, it's nice to know that we're still kind of relevant with the young audiences. I think what happens when you're a band that's together as long as we've been, you sort of go through these different phases. Like when you first get going, you're trying to prove yourself. And then once you've proved yourself, you're just kind of coasting along for a while. But then you get to another point where you're like, oh, crap, we got to start proving ourselves again. So, but, for us, it's good to know that our live show seems to still kick some major booty because we seem to have some great audiences, and we've been doing these autograph signings that last like up to 2 hours a day. So for our own selfish reasons, it's just good to know that we're still, apparently we're still hip, I think.
Once again, we're chatting with Ryland of Real Big Fish here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. Now, I got to imagine that the fan base that shows up for Warped Tour that you're performing to is rather young. It seems like they draw between 15 to 20-year-olds, if I'm not mistaken. Is there a difference between performing at a festival a la Warped Tour and when you guys headline your own shows in a club?
Definitely. I think one of the reasons why we still love doing Warped Tour is because we're able to sort of get our music out there to, yet again, an even younger audience than we're used to playing for. I mean, we still have, a really young audience that comes to see us play, but we're sort of in our own little touring bubble. Like whenever we go on the road, we're always doing our own headline shows. So it's great to get out there and play with a bunch of different bands and, meet new people. And it's funny because the guy who sells our merchandise each day, like he'll have really young people come up to him and go, "Who's Real Big Fish? Are they like a pop punk band?" And he's like, "No, but you should check it out." But it's awesome though because we get this feedback from the audience that we seem to be winning over all these new younger fans again. So once again, that's why we kind of love doing a tour like this.
Real Big Fish was part of that big ska punk explosion in the late 90s. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryland, you didn't join the band until about the mid-2000s, so you kind of came after Real Big Fish's mainstream wave. Am I correct?
That is correct. I've been around I've officially been the drummer for about the last 8.5 years, but I've been sort of filling in for past drummers since 2000. So I've been in and around the organization for a good, 12, 13 years now. Yeah, it's weird to see that, like, it almost kind of feels the same. Like, it's almost like this weird sort of this continuous Groundhog Day, which, I mean, it's great. We feel really lucky to be able to tour the way we do. And every year we seem to, like, just get people out at the shows. And it's just, and it's funny because I think a lot of promoters, when they book these tours, they just go, "Oh, this has to be the last time. People aren't showing up. People aren't going to show up next time." And then we book these tours and people still keep coming out. So we're lucky to have the fans that we do.
Now, I mentioned the late 90s pop ska explosion because of bands like yourselves and the Money Money Boss Tones who are from around here. What's the state of ska music circa 2013? Is it still prevalent on an underground level, and how are the kids reacting to it, who are probably there to see just a plethora of pop-punk bands like you mentioned?
Yeah, I think what happens is, because the ska punk thing is, still kind of that, I guess, in the underground at this point, that we still had yet to experience the fourth wave of ska. But I think what happens is you have this group of people that listen to a certain style of music, whether it's the yelly, screamy bands that are on Warped Tour or the sort of more pop punk bands. But I think what happens is we like to consider ourselves, our music, the palate cleanser. On a day like on a Warped Tour day, we're sort of there we're the fresh drink of water in between bands. I think what happens is people hear this music, and even if they've never heard it before, I think it kind of just speaks universally to people that it's time to have fun. And I think that the energy of the music and just a live show we do really rubs off on the audience. So I think that's how we reel them in.
Once again, we're chatting with Ryland Steen, drummer for Real Big Fish, here on AM 1460, the new WXBR, playing Warped Tour at the Comcast Center in Mansfield this afternoon. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ryland, but more often than not, Warped Tour bands get about a half-hour slot to play. How do you guys fit songs into a half-hour time slot, considering all of the material you guys have accrued over the years?
Yeah, we kind of just do one of the, just with as much touring as we do, we've sort of kind of, we've learned all the fan favorites that people love to hear, and we just try and cram as many in as we can. We'll throw in, on this tour, we throw in one new song off our new album, Candy Coated Fury, and then, we'll throw, it's actually pretty good. I think, we're able to throw in pretty much one or two songs from each album, and we just kind of, the tunes are definitely a little bit faster than we normally play them, just because it's like we're trying to cram it all in. But, luckily, I think, we're able to appease the audience with all of our hits and fan favorites.
Now, you guys are a band who have run the gauntlet of being signed to a major label to releasing music independently. You mentioned your most recent album, which came out about a year ago at this point, Candy Coated Fury. It's an album that you guys released on an independent level. What is the difference from your perspective of having the machine of a major label behind your band and releasing music independently?
Well, major labels can be great if they're pushing your music, and luckily, Real Big Fish did get to experience the love from the major label right in the beginning, when in the mid '90s, when the whole ska punk thing was pretty popular. And then what happened was, record labels acquire other record labels, and you just kind of get thrown around. And then what happened was, once the ska thing kind of went back to the underground, we just had this label who didn't quite know how to market the band. But luckily by then, the band had already amassed this great fan base, so we were sort of able to do it all on our own. And it was really at that point that we kind of asked to be released from our contract, and luckily we were able to get out of it. And for about the last, 6-7 years now, all of our music has been released through Rock Roots Music, and they've been great to us because they really make sure that our, any sort of album project we put out is available worldwide, and they've been kicking ass at that.
It's amazing that at this point in music history, how many costs you can cut when putting out music, because it's not like you actually have to package it and sell it in stores. Kids these days are consuming the music more via files they purchase off iTunes and the internet than any other which way. Do you guys find yourselves still getting a lot of folks buying the CDs and whatnot at stores, or is a lot of kids just downloading the new music?
I think it's a bit of both. I think we see the most physical sales at our shows, because either way, there's still a process you have to go through, whether it's ripping your CD into your iTunes or just buying something directly off of iTunes or any other, or Amazon or whatever site one prefers to use. Definitely the CD. One thing we have seen, there's a lot of vinyl sales, because we've been selling some of our vinyl records on vinyl at the shows, and we find that people like to I think people just like to still be able to hold something tangible and actually look at artwork and see things. I mean, I don't, maybe it's just because I'm from an older generation, but I personally like that. But I think it's mainly just at our shows that people are buying them. But I don't know. I mean, it's a weird thing. You'll have people say, "Oh, I can't play CDs." "Oh, well, you should download it." "Oh, well, I don't have internet right now." I think there's this. It's kind of, we're in a weird transitional period right now. But luckily, we're very lucky that people are still buying our music either way, so that's good for us.
We mentioned earlier the transition that Real Big Fish made from being on a major label to releasing music on an independent label, and I believe one of your last releases on your major label, which was Jive Records, before you guys asked to be released, was a single called Don't Start a Band. And if people haven't heard it, the basis of the song is, don't start a band, your life will suck, you'll be broke, you'll be on the road all the time, you won't see your friends and family. And I wanted to ask you how much of that song was tongue-in-cheek and how much of it was you guys just in a cheerful way expounding your misery of the fact that you guys were always on the road and always chasing that dollar to survive and play another tour.
Yeah, it's funny because our musical mastermind, Aaron Barrett, it's funny because sometimes when we play that song, as soon as we finish it, he goes, "I'm sorry, I didn't really mean that. Please start a band." But I think he would actually say that that song was actually written during a time, because that was at the height of trying to deal with the record labels, kind of infighting with the band, and so it was just kind of during a dark period. So actually, the song was kind of written from like a serious standpoint. But as soon as the record came out and we got off the label, there was a few little lineup changes. It seemed like then it just became a sarcastic song. So it kind of started off serious, but then it kind of turned into a joke. But no, we want people to start bands. We need young new bands.
What was the sarcasm of that song lost on the record label in which you released that song on, or did they just not get it all together?
Well, I think what happens is when I think bands are sort of playing a joke on the label, usually it ends up backfiring, and that's when the label says, "That's your single right there." You're like, no, it was a joke. No, we didn't really mean that's what we're releasing. But yeah, I think I think the dark side of the song and just kind of the band's way of kind of giving the finger to the label. They're like, "Oh yeah, this is a great song. Let's do this one." So to any young new bands out there, or any bands out there, be careful what you write and turn into your label, because if you think it's a joke, then don't turn it in, because chances are your label's going to say, "That's the single."
Once again, we're chatting with Ryland Steen of Real Big Fish here on AM 1460, the new WXPR, playing the Comcast Center this afternoon as part of the 2013 Vans Warped Tour. Ryland, each and every morning here on the Metro South Morning Show, we actually come into an instrumental version of our favorite Real Big Fish song, Beer, which I assume is a favorite of many people's because of the fact that you guys have actually re-recorded it in different versions a few times. Here's an argument I had with a friend of mine off air the other day, and I want to ask your opinion on this, and maybe it's better for your merch guy to have answered this question because he probably sees it firsthand. The guy who has the concession stand for beer at the Warped Tour has got to be walking out with no money. That crowd is 15 to 19 years old. Is there any beer sold at Warped Tour whatsoever, or is that guy the loneliest guy in the concession stand in the entire parking lot?
Yeah, well, you know what? I think I think they cut the beer staff in half on Warped Tour days, I think. When I go walk the crowd, I do see the occasional beer in hand. So, I think it's you have a few, but yeah, I think they're pretty lonely people on these days. But you know what though? That just means they get to hang out and go see some music if they want and not be stressed so much.
Well, there you go. I guess it's as long as they get a base pay and they're not trying to take a percentage of sales. I guess it's the best job in the world, right?
Yeah, well, in that case, let's hope they get the base pay.
Let's hope they get the base pay. Ryland, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning here on the Metro South Morning Show. I want to encourage folks to check you guys out on the Vans Warped Tour this afternoon in Mansfield. Outside of the Warped Tour later on today, when can we next expect Real Big Fish to coming within the area?
Well, hopefully, I don't want to speak out of turn, but hopefully in November, I think we're doing a tour with, I believe we're doing a few weeks with Goldfinger, but I'm probably shooting myself in the foot here because I don't think the dates have been booked yet, but hopefully by November.
Well, we'll look out for that. And before I let you go, you guys playing Vans Warped Tour today. What are some of the younger, more up-and-coming bands playing this tour that you recommend our fans checking out?
Well, I guess kind of one of my guilty pleasures of this tour has been that band called the Somerset from Phoenix. They're just kind of good punk or pop rock band. I've been really digging this group called Wallpaper, which is just kind of like just good time party hip hop music. Those have sort of been the two big ones I've been going to see whenever I can. But yeah, so check it out. Wallpaper. I think their album comes out pretty soon too. So.
Well, Ryland, I want to encourage our fans to check out real-big-fish.com. Check out your latest album, Candy Coated Fury. You guys playing Warped Tour this afternoon in Mansfield, and perhaps coming around later on this year, early next year with Goldfinger, but that remains to be seen. And Ryland, before I let you go, I want to thank you so much for doing this interview today. Real Big Fish, one of our favorite bands on the program, no joke. We do come into beer every morning. I thank you so much for joining us, and we'd love to have you guys in studio at some time.
Well, let's make it happen.
Who says that a ska punk band whose popularity was at its peak in the late 90s doesn't belong on AM radio, right?
Hey, come on. We'll you know what? We hope we can belong everywhere.
You guys belong everywhere. That's Ryland Steen of Real Big Fish joining us here on AM 1460, the new WXBR. We'll step aside for a quick breather. Mike Pava is going to bring us a news update from the WXBR newsroom. Stay with us. You're listening to the Metro South Morning Show.